Good evening. I'll call to order the Calistoga Planning Commission's regular meeting of August 27, 2018. Roll call, please.
Noted for the record that all commissioners are in attendance.
Great. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to public comments. Public comments is an opportunity to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that do not appear on the agenda. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. The Commission cannot consider any issues or take action on items raised during public comments. Anyone out there wishing to come to the mic? See none, we'll move on to adoption of the meeting agenda.
I move that we adopt the meeting agenda.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Communications correspondence.
None have been received since you received your packets.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, consent calendar. I'm going to look for a motion to approve the minutes and of the meeting of August 8th, as well as gas station use permit UP 2017-11 design review, adoption of a resolution denying use permit and design review application for the construction of a service station, convenience store, car wash, and restaurant at 2449 Foothill Boulevard. This was continued from August 8, 2018. Commissioner Abernathy and myself as well, we were not there, so we are unable to vote, so I will turn that over for a motion to Vice Chair.
Do we have a motion?
So I move that we adopt the consent calendar as proposed.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good,
Approved
thank you.
unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to public hearings. Craftsman Inn, remodel and expansion UP 2018-7, DR 2018-5. Consideration of a use permit and design review application to remodel and expand an existing bed and breakfast to 13-unit hotel and spa at 1213 and 1303 Foothill Boulevard. I am going to recuse myself because of the previously talking with the applicant, and may in the future do not know. So, if, in the best interest of the community, I will recuse myself. Commissioner Wilkes, it's yours. I will leave the room and call me back when you're ready.
Okay. Lynn, do we have a staff report?
Thank you. As you recall, 2 years ago, the Planning Commission approved a project for these two properties, which would involve the expansion of the 5-room bed and breakfast and turn it into a 13-unit hotel and spa by incorporating the property adjacent to it. The spa would be very minimal and just exclusively for guest use. They will also have breakfast service. Unfortunately, 2 years have gone past, and I did give the project a 1-year time extension because they were working on applying for a building permit. But according to the municipal code, that is the maximum time that can be given, is the 2-year period, so extended. So unfortunately, the applicants had to reapply, and the project is virtually the same. They've updated their project narrative. We've changed some of the findings in the municipal code since then. They've also responded to a few comments that commissioners brought up at your August 24th, 2016 hearing, and I've summarized those in the staff report. They're working on addressing some of those comments in the building permit submittal. There have been no significant changes in the project site surroundings or to the city's general plan policies or zoning code regulations that would alter the conclusions of your 2016 staff report. And as of August 19th, we've received no public comments on the project. So we are recommending that the Commission reapprove the use permit and design review applications. I forgot to give it to you. Probably saw the email. Unfortunately, yes. The Kites aren't able to attend because of an illness in the family, but otherwise they would have been here. So I will do my best to answer any questions, but they fully intend to proceed with the project and submit their building permits.
Okay. Well, since we don't have an applicant to make any kind of presentation, I will note for the record that the commission, as we heard it 2 years ago, was virtually the same, And so we all sat through and took that measure 2 years ago, so I think that we're all familiar with it. I will open the public hearing if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come up and speak on this matter. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Any thoughts?
I just had a question. Do they pay all the processing fees again then, Lynn?
Fortunately, they did, but we work on a deposit, so we bill our time against the deposit, so they'll get a lot of it back. I didn't have to work.
But they do have to pay for the work you're doing now and all that?
Yes, they did have to go through the formal submittal process because basically that one is, for dead for all
And the noticing.
purposes. Yes, and thank
And
you,
do
and the
all the
noticing,
noticing.
and, yeah.
Okay, any comments?
I was trying to read the date on the drawings. It looks like it says 16. I believe it's the same set of drawings
Oh,
from
it's-
2016.
Yes, it's identical drawings.
They are the same drawings.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we hadn't mixed anything, but it does appear to be the exact same project we
Okay.
approved before.
Well, the applicant has responded and made a best attempt at some of the things. I know some of the issues that you had brought up 2 years ago, Alyssa, and they've tried to deal with as best they could with those. I was very satisfied with the design, the layout, the concept 2 years ago, and I have certainly not changed my opinion. So if no one has any other thoughts, we would open it for if anyone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving use permit and design review applications for a 13-unit hotel and spa at 1213 and 1303 Foothill Boulevard.
Do I have a second? Okay. It is moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Approved unanimously, so we can move on, and perhaps Jeff could go out and capture our chairman to bring him back.
Jeff could probably leave if he's here for Craftsman Inn. Might want to tell him that we're done.
Thank you, Vice Chair Wilks. I appreciate it. Moving on to CyberLeak Design Review, DR 2017-11, consideration of a design review application for exterior seismic reinforcement alterations to the building located at 1343 and 1347 Lincoln Avenue. Staff. Oh, I'm sorry. I was out too long. I was getting
Yeah,
comfortable.
no more vacations.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to change my middle name to Conflicted, I think, or something. But they were a tenant in that building.
Okay.
And I have to recuse myself as well?
Yes.
Okay. I did. I'm no longer in 1423 Lincoln.
Yeah, we were not apprised of this
Where are you
movement.
at?
Oh.
Are you
I'm
even
at,
closer?
13 Angwin Plaza is our commercial address.
Angwin Plaza? I'm not
Plaza,
familiar
a little
with.
town called Angwin.
So
That's
I
more than
guess-
500
I
feet.
think it's more than 500
Then I
feet.
guess you can stay.
Commissioner Cooper, well, thank you for sharing that, and we need
Sit,
to,
Lulu, sit.
we definitely need to update our records, so if you
Yeah.
could email me that, I
Yes.
can pass it on to the city clerk,
will.
and we won't draw your map. Well, no, you still live in town, I hope.
Yes, I do.
Oh, well, you get to stay. Okay, so, this is consideration of a design review application for exterior seismic reinforcement alterations to the historically significant building located at 1343 to 1347 Lincoln Avenue. I'm just going to give a brief background and description because I believe 3 of you are on BizAb. Yes, Building Standards Appeals and Advisory Board, and you
Correct.
considered this matter back in April. Essentially, this is a 2-story building that was declared to be an unreinforced masonry building by the building official and is required by the municipal code to be seismically retrofitted to ensure public safety. A 2017 historic resource evaluation of the property concluded that it is eligible for listing in the California Register of Historical Resources. So we have to be very cognizant of any changes that are made to the exterior of the building, and since that is what is approved to two of the facades, that's why this matter is before you this evening. A building permit application submitted for the retrofit proposes to reinforce the northern half of the building by applying concrete to two exterior walls, basically the one facing the alley and the one at the rear. And as I noted, it did go to BizAb, and the board acted to unanimously support the proposed exterior retrofitting approach subject to design review by the Planning Commission. Basically, they would apply a 6-inch thick layer of concrete to portions of the walls. It would be sort of in an arched configuration. There were many alternatives discussed, brick, stamped concrete to, kind of match the brick. What color should it be? What should the shape of the application of the concrete be? But this is the alternative that was landed on as being the least intrusive and at the same time allowing the building to be reinforced. It would also have the added bonus of kind of holding in place any bricks that might come loose during a seismic event. So there's a rendering in your packet and justification from the project structural engineer explaining this approach. We did get a historic evaluation from Evans and DeShazo, Inc., because this is historically significant, and they did provide us guidance in terms of compliance with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties. And that's summarized in your staff report. While they note that there are obviously going to be impacts to the the architecturally historic components of the building. The report concludes that the project meets the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act and includes recommendations that are summarized and included in the recommended conditions of approval. So in terms of consistency with the city's plans, policies, and codes, retrofitting and reinforcing this unreinforced masonry building would fulfill multiple goals, objectives, and policies of the community identity element, which are focused on conserving Calistoga's historic, architectural, and cultural resources. It would also be consistent with the public safety element in terms of reducing risk to the community from earthquakes and working with owners of seismically unsafe buildings and structures to adequately reinforce them. This is located in the downtown character area overlay and the historic district sub-area. However, there are no specific design considerations that apply to the project, and there are no specific design or development regulations in the zoning code that apply. This would also work towards fulfilling a goal of the City Council that was adopted for this fiscal year, enhance Calistoga's small-town character by making it safe and attractive. And one of its priority projects is to implement the unreinforced masonry building ordinance to abate structures that could be hazardous during an earthquake. And then under the environmental review section of your written report, there is an excerpt from EDS's letter report about the potential environmental impacts of the proposed project. And they did suggest certain conditions of approval that are included in the draft resolution. One is to minimize the impact of the structural material that will be visible from Lincoln Avenue to the greatest extent feasible, avoid applying the structural material too close to the windows, and once they've landed on the actual material that's going to be used, we will call Stacy DeShazo back to look at the samples and provide some guidance when it's actually being applied so that it minimizes the possible impacts on the architectural character of particularly the alley side building, which is somewhat visible to the public. As you noted in the kind of visual simulation, it is blocked by a portion of the buildings that are fronting on Lincoln Avenue. So it will protrude above that and unfortunately cover up the ghost lettering of a former sign. But so the conclusion, though, is that this is the most economically feasible and reasonable way to reinforce these two sides of the building. The other two sides will be reinforced from the interior because, well, for one reason, it's up against the former Lincoln Avenue Spa building, which is probably coming to you for a demolition request next month. So if that is removed, that would facilitate their retrofit of that facade that's adjoining it. So with that, we are recommending approval of the design review application subject to conditions of.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff before I open up the hearing, public hearing?
One of the documents references two options, but there's only one option included here. I think it's the letter from the structural engineer. Do you know what the other option that was considered was?
I think it was the completely interior retrofitting of it.
Okay.
The same approach that was going to be used for the other two.
Okay.
And I did want to note, I'm sorry, that the front will be unaltered. They are going to reinforce the parapet at the top of the building, but otherwise the front of the building, the primary facade will remain unchanged.
Parapet will be reinforced, not removed and replaced.
Actually, I guess
The new parapet's stepped back from the old one.
I don't think it's stepped back. I think it's just.
I think in the front.
At the front, it
they're
would
gonna-
be
They're going to
in plain.
match.
So we had a detail.
There's no detail for the front.
There's only details for the north and the
Yeah.
west.
Right.
That's why I was curious about the other.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I provided those to Stacy DeShazo, and she
Okay, good.
reviewed them and found that it wouldn't affect the visual qualities of the front facade.
Okay.
Lynn, do you know, in the front parapet, there's, the minor return that comes back, that is not indicated on the side elevation. Do you know if that will remain?
Sorry, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know if the applicant does. We have a full set of building permit drawings in our office.
Okay.
If you'd like to, I should have brought them with me if I'd known that you were going to
Well, I think that we
inquire
can
about the structural.
take care of that during deliberation. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If none, I will open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to come forward. And if they don't, would the applicant be available for questions? I hope. Joe's over there talking. Okay. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and reserve the right to open it if necessary. Commissioners.
I have a couple of observations and a couple of questions. And when we looked at this in the Building Standards Committee, and Paul, you may recall, do you know, is this poured in place or shotcrete?
That's a good question. I don't know.
The
The new concrete wall, do you know if that is going to be poured in place, in other words, formed and poured in place, or is it going to be shotcrete? Okay, because it certainly will make a difference. If it's formed and poured in place, you don't know what you've got until you remove the forms. And so that, okay.
And I can go out on a limb and just considering the location and
I would-
the difficulty, that it's almost certainly
Yeah,
going to be
I would assume
shotcrete.
it's
Yeah,
shotcrete. All right.
I don't think it's practical to do it any other way.
Yeah. Well, I have two observations, and that I would like to see incorporated into the project, and I think that both of them are fairly minor. One is dealing with the additional wood-framed stucco parapet at the top, and that parapet is in line with the face of the old brick. And so And I'm assuming that if it's stucco, they would probably attempt to make it the same color as the concrete. But if it's in line with the old brick and keeping with the parapet that's there, what it wants to be is brick. And there are a million brick veneers now available, and certainly one can be found to match the brick in this building. And it would be then constructed exactly the same way as a wood frame parapet. They would put a scratch coat, a brown coat, and then instead of the finish coat, they would simply adhere the brick and mortar it the same as the building is mortared. And I think that if you had that, you would have visually, and certainly the side of the building at the top is very visible. Visually, you would have the appearance of a continuation of an existing brick wall. So I would like to see that added as at least as a condition to the approval of this. And along with that, depending on what the construction documents say about the reinforcement of the front parapet, if they have proposed to remove the little wing wall return, I would ask that that be duplicated, which they could also do in that wood framing technique. And so it would all be part of the same process. The other thing that I would like to see done, I've done decades of work with colored concrete, both poured in place, shotcrete, and every other kind. I have never seen a concrete sample from a manufacturer yet that had any resemblance to the finished product. And I think that probably in 80% of all the projects that I have ever done, I've usually asked for either a 3-foot by 3-foot or 4-foot by 4-foot sample pour to be applied with the same techniques as the final with the color, and so that the color could be verified by the historical consultant, as well as anyone else. But that would be sort of the key thing. And so I would also propose that we add that. And I will just interrupt for 1 minute. Bill Nance has walked in. Bill, can I ask you a question?
Could you come to the microphone?
Could you come up? Yeah.
Bill?
You can answer a question that we've previously asked. Is the concrete wall going to be poured in place or shotcrete?
Shotcrete.
That we assume. Good.
Okay.
That's all we need.
To answer your question, possibly on the color, to match where he's talking about having a sample to get it as close as possible to the brick. Is Stacy going to be on part of that? I think that was in her staff report, that she's going to
That's a
look at to
condition
make
of
it a perfect
approval,
match
that they
for
will
that.
be
Yeah,
there.
that's what I said. She was going to monitor. That was a concern of Commissioner
But,
Wilk.
yeah.
Okay, so that was covered. All right, great, because I saw it in here. All right, very good. And then I think I'll address it to
Bill. It's okay.
I'm looking at Joe, I'm sorry, I apologize.
know, it's all right.
That's all right, Bill. The question that, just before you walked in from Commissioner Wilks, was if you look at the parapet wall, as you come across from the front, it comes out and it rolls down. I'm assuming you're going to match that back the way it was. I mean, I know it's a couple hours extra work, but
Yeah,
it pretty much, it'll be matching what you
Trying to keep
took it
it
down. Yeah,
aesthetically the same on the outside.
made the
as what it is
assumptions,
now.
but just
There'll be
confirming.
new parapet walls.
You're on camera, by the way, so,
Pardon me?
you're on camera, by the way, so we got you.
Oh,
Okay. Those were the two things I believe Commissioner Wilks was asking, so thank you. We appreciate you coming
okay.
to the
Thanks.
show. Thank you, Bill. Bill, thank you.
Mr.
See what happens when you
Mr.
go on
Nance.
vacation, it just, you feel good for the first week, but I think tomorrow is the end of the week, so look out. Okay. That being said, Commissioners, yes, Commissioner Cooper, anything?
Oh, I just had a question for Lynn. Have there been many cases where the property owners in Calistoga are unable to financially manage these requirements for the retrofits? Or has everybody who's owned a property been able to solve the problems and continue forward?
We have one that there's been no movement on, the former Dimitri Restaurant Hotel. I don't think that's because of lacking the financial wherewithal. I think that's a corporate consideration. And, you know, I've heard various things. We have building permit plans for the retrofit, but they have not followed through on them. So we don't know if they're trying to sell the building with the permit or, you know, so we've been trying to get movement on that. But since it's unoccupied, we're not as concerned as, for example, a building like this that is occupied. What else is left? I think we've got-
Everybody has been
I
able to
think that'll
fulfill
be
their
it.
requirements without
Well,
any-
except for the demolition of the former Lincoln Avenue Spa, but that isn't because of financial considerations. That's because it can't be reinforced.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner McNair?
My comments were going to be focused on the parapet and making sure that that detail was reviewed by the architectural historian. We don't have all the details in this packet, so as long as she's reviewing it, that's my concern. And then the other detail was the northeast corner of the building where the new finish meets the front facade. There's not a detail included for that intersection, which would be one of the most important details in how this is finished and comes across. So those are the two that I would request that we specifically request and get reviewed by someone who will comment.
I think that you can tell that Commissioner McNair and I went to the same university School of Architecture, only about 5 decades apart.
Eugene, land of brick. Let's see, and then my other questions were just about the other options that were considered, but it sounds like that's not an issue here.
Okay, thank you very much. That being said, if there's no more comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion. I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving design review application DR 2017-11 with the condition of adding brick veneer to the added parapet on the north and west faces that will be in line with the old brick wall and with brick to match the building and grout to match the building.
Just the parapet.
The parapet, just the parapet, the new parapet that's proposed.
Right.
In addition, that the front parapet, if it's to be removed, be replaced as close as existing as possible, in line with the brick, and that the 2 corner returns be rebuilt to match if they have to be removed. And thirdly, I would like to condition it for a 3-foot by 3-foot minimum shotcrete sample with embedded color to be approved before the final shotcrete is applied to the building.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mr. Sarblick, thank you for keeping our town the way we like it. Appreciate it. It doesn't seem like much, but every time somebody does something right, it's a good standard that other people have to go by, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Matters initiated by commissioners. Anyone have anything they'd like to bring up tonight? No? Okay. Director's report.
In case you don't know, the City Council last night denied an appeal of your approval of the Washington Street apartments, but they did refer the project back to the commission for certain modifications. So once the applicants and the architect have worked on those, you'll be seeing this back.
Okay, thank you very much. If that's all, we will entertain a motion to adjourn to the next. I'll ask staff, is it on September?
September 12th?
September 12th? Okay, we'll adjourn to the next regular scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission on September 12th,
So
2018. So if I've got a motion,
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.